Welcome to the LFG Pats Pod with your hosts, Joe and Mike. Let's go!
Let's go.
All right. Welcome into the LFG Pats Pod. And Mike, it's season 2, episode 1. We finally made it. We're here. We are in the new season. How do you feel, Mike?
We have a huge announcement to make, and this just came to me, but I've decided that since we made it a full calendar year and we reset and went on to week 1, we should just abandon the whole project and just quit while we're ahead. So let's both just quit right now and log off.
I think it's a good time.
Wait a minute. What's the date today?
Oh, it's April. Mike, you sly dog, you.
I had to do one to somebody.
I didn't know
what I was going to do, and that just literally came to me. So
it's funny. It's funny.
I wish we had ZeeBee here too to share in the joke.
I know. Yeah, he might join a little later. He got tied up, but
no, folks, whether you like it or not, we're not going anywhere. So this is just the beginning. This is
stuck
week
with us,
1
bitches.
of season 2. We went through 52 weeks without skipping 1 week. We made it a whole calendar year, Joseph.
Pretty big.
So the momentum is very, very high. So we're gonna keep it going, folks. Much to your chagrin. Sorry, but yeah, that's how it's gonna go.
So my team today, actually, I joined the first. We run kind of like a scrum on IT process, but my team joined as soon as I joined the call. I joined it 2 minutes late, and all of them dropped on me as soon as I joined, and I'm like, son of a bitch. And so they all came back on and started laughing. But then at the end of the call, I got them pretty good. I was like, hey, by the way, we have this big project that this other team's doing and they need help on it. So you guys are all going to have to stop your work for 3 months and work on this project. Like I just talked to the CIO and it's all hands on deck. And I said it like deadpan and they were like, oh shit. And then I was like, yeah, no, I got you guys. Don't worry. You're not doing that. Don't worry about it.
They poked the bear, Joe. They poked the bear. That's what happens.
It was all day long. Everyone was doing it all day long, and there was some good ones. But yeah, so we're here, episode 1. So big show today, guys. We're going to talk about the defense. We're going to specifically key in on the defensive side of the ball today. We're going to look at free agency, who's still left out there, and then we're going to get into the draft. And if we have enough time, we might be able to squeeze in a mock draft or 2. We'll see. But in any
never
event,
do too many mocks, you know.
No, it's always fun, and you always see different kinds of mocks too, right? So you see things that kind of inspire you. You look at new players, and when it comes down to it, it's always a learning experience, right?
Sure.
Especially for guys like us.
Players, you know, you do the draft. Yeah. Players.
So we'll get into that, guys. But first thing we're going to talk about real quick is a sponsor. So we're Rogue Island Kitchen and Bar. It's in Providence. We just posted about it. We're having a huge event come the draft. Round 1 of the draft, Thursday night, April 23rd, not August 23rd, because I'm an idiot and I put August in the first flyer. We're going to have a great big old bash, and it's Ryan Bissett, the owner's birthday as well. So we got a little something special planned for him. But we have Fanatics putting us all in gear from them. They're giving us a bunch of stuff to give away. We're going to have a 50-50 raffle. We're going to put together a prize, a basket as well. So there's going to be a ton of giveaways. The only ask is you either wear your LFG Pats Pod gear, or you buy gear, or you buy a gift card. So it's pretty simple. So, I mean, the gift card you're going to use anyway when you're at Rogue Island, but just support local businesses, support the podcast. And that's it. I mean, you get free food anyway.
You get free food, drink specials, a fantastic venue. Like, what's not to like about it, you know?
Yeah,
plus, we're going to have a raffle and stuff. So there's a potential to have a lot of prizes. And aren't we doing like swag giveaways and stuff too?
Swag giveaways, memorabilia. I'm not sure. Fanatics is going to mail me a ton of stuff. So the rep that I'm in contact with, the guy's amazing. So he's going to put together a swag bags, all kinds of stuff, jerseys, all kinds of shit. Nice. So that'll be great. And then we have Los Talks Pats flying in from California. We have Scotty B coming in from Connecticut. We have Pete Collins coming in from Massachusetts. There might be another surprise guest. I won't mention his name because he's not really a guy that shows his face too much, but another guy might be coming too.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, we got a pretty impressive squad of people. and shows. And so to me, it's like, it's great. If you're a fan of all these podcasts and all these content creators, then come out. And if you're just a fan of the Patriots, come out. I mean, either way, it's a win-win, free food. But yeah,
Special shout out to Carlos Low Stocks Pats for coming all the way from the
yeah,
West Coast just to attend our event. So there's going to be a lot of us podcasters in the room. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of ball talk
it's
and
gonna be epic.
opinions bandied about the whole throughout. So a lot of different opinions, a lot of different guys that have their own platform. So we're all
And
going
if we trade up, Mike, there's no place that you would rather be than at a bar with people hanging out. And because we're
oh
gonna
yeah.
go right to as soon as that trade comes in, we are gonna go right to a live podcast.
Oh
So
hell yeah, hell yeah! I don't buy it. I don't think they're gonna do that, but
no,
I know you're holding out hope that they'll come
uh,
up and get a stud, but I don't think they're gonna do it. It would be fun though. For that night, it would be fun if they did it for us. You know what I mean?
exactly. So yeah, so Rogue Island Kitchen and Bar, and then Horizon HVAC guys. Give these guys a shout. I mean, they just hooked me up. I had a gas leak at my house. These guys were in and out of my house quick. There was some I forget what it was, that the part exactly, but a pretty cheap part, but they came in and out pretty quick the next morning. Very, very handy guys. They're very quick. They're very thorough. So yeah, so Horizon HVAC, give these guys a call. I just turned the AC on last night. It was pumping clean. I just turned on the heat like a week ago. So like these things are kind of fluid in New England. It goes
Oh,
up and down with
definitely.
the weather. So
We had a foot of snow 1 week and 70-degree weather 2 weeks later. So go figure.
exactly. So Horizon HVAC, give these guys a call if you need anything. They have great, preventative maintenance stuff, great packages. Give them a call. So yeah. So Mike, let's talk about free agency. What's your take on our defense, Mike? What do you think we're missing from a starter and a depth standpoint? What do you think that our biggest areas of glaring need are?
Well, we lost a bunch of guys. It was obviously not. There was a pretty concerted effort, it seemed like, to intentionally not retain some of the guys that we had on that end. Chase on comes to mind, Jack Gibbons, Jalen Hawkins, those type of guys come to mind. So those guys were like the core. They were part of the core of that defense that went on that run. But these guys are making a decision that they wanted to replace them with other people that maybe fit the mold of what Vrabel's looking for a little bit. So, you trade a guy like Chase on for a Draymond Jones, and you're sacrificing a little bit of a third down pass rushing explosiveness for an early down guy. Well, the guy can play 3 downs, but
Yeah.
he's a stout edge setter, much more than Chase on was. So they are trying to shore that up, but I don't have a heck of a lot of faith in his pass rushing is just basically bull rushing, and he reduces down inside on passing downs, which we don't need because we have two of the best pass rushing DTs in the league in Williams and Barmore. So I'm kind of hoping that thing plays out for the better. But I've heard some call it a lateral move. I don't know how lateral it is. It's just a different skill set that they were looking for, apparently. As far as the linebackers are concerned, letting Gibbons go was a little bit puzzling to me because he was one of the heartbeats of this team. And he even said it after he left. He's like, I love that team. I really wanted to be a part of that team. It just didn't work out. But at that position specifically, they're looking to get younger and faster. Gibby wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but this draft in particular has a bunch of off-ball linebackers, some of the new school rangy linebackers like the 6'1", 232 guy instead of like the 6'3", 250 guy. They're looking for guys that are a little bit smaller, sleeker, faster, that can cover in space. So I understand their ruling on that, but they haven't done anything to solidify or back up the depth in that linebacker room whatsoever. You got Christian Ellis and Robert Spillane, and that's pretty much the only game in town. I mean, they signed that kid KJ Britt. He's a special teamer, so they're putting baskets in the draft, and the same thing goes to safety too. Jalen Hawkins, I thought he had an admirable year, and I thought that 2 years, $10 million that Baltimore gave him, I thought that was a very reasonable contract, and I would have paid the guy that. But in that case specifically, I can't be mad because they got the guy who I consider to be the best safety in the league, and I've thought this for a while about Kevin Byard. The guy's just an absolute beast. I don't care if he's 33, but he's 33. He's on a 1-year deal, and we're going to need somebody in the future to back him up. So we have a definite need at safety right there as well. So, like we talked about when Carlos was on, them intentionally leaving spots open, which is a little bit risky because normally what a lot of teams will say is we're going to fill out our roster, make sure our roster is completely full heading into the draft. Because now, once the draft rolls around, we don't have to reach for need. We can just literally get the best player available. And I think that they kind of cost themselves that opportunity to do that because they have needs that they need to fill in the draft. And I think they're kind of like specifically gearing their offseason to go that way. But what if you don't get the guys that you love? You know what I mean? They must have a handful of different guys that they love at certain positions. You would hope so that they would have a plan B, C, and D when said person isn't going to be there where they think he's going to be. So this is a very interesting draft for that reason alone, because the first, especially I would say the first 3 or 4 picks, those guys are going to be expected to contribute immediately. Like we have an immediate need for a swing tackle, for example. You know what I mean? We have an immediate need. I know we're talking defense, but we have an immediate need for a third running back, even though we have a Leon Larson waiting in the wings. But we have an immediate need, obviously, to bolster the depth on the edge. Like Landry and Draymond Jones, they're not going to get it done on pass rushing on third and long. Those aren't the guys you want. Those are edge-setting guys. And who do we have coming in? Elijah Ponder and Braden Swinson. So you're going to put that much faith in a guy that was, in Ponder's case, an undrafted free agent last year, and Swinson, who was a 5th-round pick and was on the practice squad for the majority of the season. You can't bank on that. Luckily for us, this draft is incredibly deep at the edge positions. And we're going to talk about some of these guys, the different directions in which they can go. But edge is particularly deep. And that's the saving grace for these guys. The edge is particularly deep. The off-ball linebacker, there's a ton of off-ball linebackers. The safety market isn't as strong. There aren't as good of guys there in the later rounds that you're going to find in the earlier rounds. So they might have to hop on a safety, I would say, in the middle rounds at the absolute latest. But they're setting themselves up. So they're putting pressure on themselves, and we're going to hold them to it about how they execute this draft. So I'm very excited to see what their game plan is, especially based on last year's draft. I thought it was an incredibly strong draft. I'm pretty sure I gave it a solid A across the board, and I haven't been able to say that about a Patriots draft, and I can't remember the last time.
Exactly.
So the fact that they're doing that, it gives me hope that they're going to get impact players. So I hope they actually do that and get the guys that they need.
Yeah, agreed. I think another sneaky position on the defense that we've talked about before is our boundary corner, right? So we saw the likes of
no depth there either. You're right.
Alex Austin, we had DJ
Charles
James
Woods.
for a little bit, Charles Woods. I mean, these guys, Alex Austin looked promising for a little bit, but if he's on the field too much, I mean, it just screams like we have a problem.
Yeah, he didn't play well in his opportunities. That's why he's not back.
No, and I think we got pretty lucky with Carlton Davis. With his, older age, him playing that many games is great. But can you depend on that? And like you said, on the offensive side of the ball, you got Morgan Moses, and again, we got pretty lucky there that he was able to play most games. But when it comes down to it, we lost Vidarian Lowe, which it's not a huge loss, but he's a big piece as far as like a backup swing tackle, because he filled in again very admirably for Will Campbell.
I still can't believe he got the bag. He got 2 years, $12 million. That guy's making $6 million a year.
It just shows how important
valuable that
is. And you just can't grab these swing tackles. I mean, they just lost Trent Williams, right? He's done. He's hanging up.
No, I think they're trying to work through.
They didn't want to pay him, right? They don't want to pay him, so he's out there.
They're working through it, but they're at an impasse right now.
That's right. So, but yeah, it's the defensive side of the ball. It is I think that I'm actually writing in my second article on this. What's the order of the priorities, right? Because everyone's talking tackle and Morgan Moses and how many snaps, how many games is he going to play, and is this his last year? And I get it, but at the same time, to your point, I would kind of put edge and receiver over that to an extent, right? Because we need to get some more, call it a lottery ticket, really, because a lot of these receivers don't work out. But you need to play, you need to play to win, right? If you're not playing, you can't win. It's kind of like the lottery. But I think you have, a right tackle right now. You
That
have
just turned 35.
I just turned 35. You have a guard that's, very injury prone. And yeah, his injuries are, things that aren't chronic, aren't gonna come back, like the triceps and the Achilles.
Knock on
Um,
wood.
but when it comes down to it, you do have an issue with the offensive line and the depth there. And then you have, no clear edge rusher, no clear dominant receiver weapon. And it doesn't have to be a receiver either. It could be, a really good tight end as well. But yeah, there's a glaring needs on this football team. I think most of them are around depth, with the exception of receiver and edge. Like those two are like, no, we just need a premier one. We have enough of them to an extent, but we need a premier one.
Yeah,
Um,
we need a guy that can pin his ears back on third down and just straight up get after the passer. So
yeah,
it's gonna be up to them. And I think we've done 100 mocks, you, me, and everybody else. It's gonna be up to them how they want to prioritize it. But the first two picks I see going in either order, tackle and defensive edge. I see that being the first two picks, unless somebody falls to them that they can't live without, apparently. But the more mocks you do and the more mocks you see, and the more you look at the player rankings and stuff, some guys have 7 tackles going in the first round, for crying out loud. So by the time it gets to us, we have the luxury pick at 31. By the time it gets to us, do we snag that tackle for the future, or do we gamble or get a stud DE and then gamble in the second round to see what the leftovers are on the tackle? So it's going to be very interesting. I know, we've seen the reports, Mike Vrabel making the rounds, and he was doing hands-on-hands work with Max Ehanekor. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
sounds right.
The tackle. And they were getting up into each other, but they've had like a lot of contact with that kid. He's had a visit. They went to his pro day. They met with him at the combine, all this stuff. Like, he's the type of guy. Sometimes you can see, based on like their 30 visits and whatnot. Well, obviously you can see what direction they're leaning based on the 30 visits, but that doesn't usually mean much. But when there's a lot of smoke, usually there's fire. And when it comes to that kid, Ian Acor, I think there's a lot of smoke around that kid. So they might want to go that way and think about the edge guy in the second round. There's still going to be plenty of them there, or they can get one of the higher graded edges in the first round and then fall back in the second round. But I feel like if they don't take a swing tackle in the first 2 rounds, I don't think they're going to get the type of guy that's going to be able to contribute long term.
Or even right now, right? But yeah, no, and I think the thing here is you look at the tackle position, and I'm pulling up free agency right now. They signed what's his name, Hudson from the Giants, who's
Yeah, that
always
means nothing. That means
no,
nothing.
he could be just a camp body, he could
Yeah.
whatever. But he's not the answer, right? We know he at the very best is going to be a depth piece in case of injury.
That was the guy
Um,
that had 4 penalties in a row last year with the Giants, and then they
yeah,
ended up
yeah,
on the same
exactly.
drive, and he got benched for the rest
If
of the
he's
year.
in, then it's a huge fucking problem. But
Seriously.
so we have that as, call it what it is, right? It's probably a camp body. And then you have some guys out here that are a little long in the tooth, but Jawan Taylor, who talk about penalties, probably
Yeah.
one of the most penalized right tackles in the league.
Yeah, I'm good.
Jack Conklin's a little older, Jonah Williams, right? So you got some of these guys, Cam Robinson, I can't stand.
Yeah.
Um,
If
so
they were going to sign one of those guys, I feel like they would have done it already.
Well, yeah, and it's also like, why? Like, to me, the answer, I think this is what's pointing them towards we have to draft a guy in the first or second round, is because you're in a weird spot. You have someone that can start right now, so you're not going to sign one of these other guys that can start right now.
Yeah.
But what you should do is bolster your team long term. So I think that's what they're thinking.
Well, they can do the Belichick thing, which he would always draft a tackle a year early, which was one of the good strategies that he had, and have that guy be the swing tackle, extra lineman, third tight end, slash, etc. in the first year, and then step into the starting role whenever he's ready. So I think that's a pretty good strategy because tackles do not grow on trees. You got to get one early.
Right. And so I think that just really just points us to the draft because I think, like you said, if they were going to do something bigger to solidify that position through free agency, they probably would have already done that. But that's the other thing. We could see something change at the draft where somebody slips and they change their plan completely. Maybe they're leaving it fluid and they're saying, you know what, we can just wait on this and if we don't get something in the draft, then we'll go get this other guy. But I mean, if you think about it, when we're picking, right, we're probably somewhere down here, right? You got the Caleb Lomu. I don't think he falls. Blake Miller, I've seen him mocked to us a few times.
Yeah.
Ianakor, we've seen him mocked to us. I like Caleb Tiernan, although I've seen him get pretty abused in some of his tape.
He always ends up he always seems to be available in the second round in my mock drafts.
Yeah.
He's always one of the guys that's there. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I forget who he was going up against, but I watched a whole game with him against one of the DNs. It'll come to me at some point, and he got pretty abused.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is where I think, to your point, they're looking at this and going, it'd be nice if we could just get Lomu, Miller, or Ianakor and just call it a day. Now, if you get into the second part of this, and this is, these rankings aren't perfect, but there's guys like Drew Shelton, who I've watched his tape. He's not like electric by any means. He's not blowing people up, but he's serviceable.
Yeah.
Then you got Markel Bell, who's 6'9", right?
Yeah, he's huge.
Could be a good pick there, but obviously we'll see how this plays out. But I think that's what we're seeing. I think they're seeing a lot of teams need tackles. So by the time it gets to us, like they said, there could be 5, 6, 7 offensive linemen. This guy Ione is probably the best lineman in the whole draft. But he's a guard, so he's not going to go that high. But he'll be gone by the time we pick, I'm pretty sure. And then you got these Freeling, Lomu, Pregnon's, a second rounder, but then it gets into there's these guys who will be around in 31. So I think that's kind of the thought process is from 12 to 24 or whatever, 13 to 24 there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like hit or miss. And so they're kind of saying, if we're going to draft a guy, it's got, and now maybe they trade up with their second pick too. That's the other option, is if you don't get one of these guys just because somebody else falls, maybe you got 10 other picks, right? You pick one, maybe your one is Omar Cooper, or maybe your one is Casey Concepcion or whatever, right? And then you say, you know what, I want to pick again. So I'm going to take my 63, I don't know, a fifth, a sixth, and the next year is fifth or something.
That I can see happening. Moving up in the second round, I can totally see that.
So we have the picks, we have the draft capital, and I don't think we're drafting 11 players. Like, I just don't see it happening. 11
players. We got to make moves. We have all those 6th round picks. We got to get rid of those.
Yeah, so I could see them maybe not selecting a tackle first, but then maybe coming back up in the second and grabbing someone they like, if that, if they have an option to do that, or they do that vice versa and they take the tackle in the first and they come up and take a receiver or an edge guy or whoever else that may have felt that they like. But I think this is becoming more of a possibility. When I first was hearing about it, I'm like, oh man, really, a tackle? Like, we need so many other things. But when it comes down to it, solidifying that offensive line for Drake May for years to come, especially with that 5th-year option on that right tackle, it's pretty nice. So
they need somebody that will be able to step up next year, because they're shoring up the line, but like you said, Vera Tucker is injury prone, and Mike Onwenu is also going to be in his last year. He's in a contract year, so I have no idea what their plans are or thoughts are with him.
Great point.
He's getting up there in age, so they might take a fly. I think they will draft a guard in like the mid to late rounds, to be honest with you, just for the depth. They need the depth there, but there's a lot of moving parts. You got Wilson's going to center, and he plays center in college, but he hasn't played center here yet. So there's going to be a lot of different things that you need to look at in order to solidify that. That's why I think they need to go after it early. And when it comes to, just really quick about the wide receivers, I feel like we're in a holding pattern there because obviously the talk of the town is AJ Brown. When is that going to happen? But that's not a sure thing. It's very far from it. So do you ignore that position because of this anticipated? Do they have a wink, wink, nod thing after June 1st? Or do you have to go ahead and get it? And then once you get the guys you draft and then you get an AJ Brown in, there's going to be some odd men out there. Namely guys like Booty and Demario Douglas. So it's the timing of it is all weird. That position is really unsettled as far as the actual depth is concerned. But I feel like for that position, they do need one more piece. I love the huge X receivers. I wish they would grab one of those guys. There's a bunch of them in like the mid rounds. But you don't know what their thought, like I said, you don't know what their thought process is. So maybe they're holding out for AJ Brown, but I don't know. They're being a little bit risky holding out like on these things to fill out their depth until a later date. So I just hope it all pans out.
All right, so we said we were going to talk about defense, and we started with offensive tackle, but that's okay because it's a controversial thing right now.
They go hand in hand because you have to debate what do you want first? You want the defensive end or you want the OT? So it's it's worthy to argue the merits of both sides of it. But yeah, we were looking at the defense originally.
Yeah, and I agree. So if you look at the edge position, right? Let's start out with the edge position because we both agree, I think, that that's our biggest right now, right? We need a pass rusher. We need someone who can primarily rush the passer, but if they can also set the edge, that's nice too. But to me, it's this game is about getting after the quarterback when it comes down to it. So
yeah,
who's out there, right? We got Hassan Reddick. We got Joey Bosa. Don't love that. Leonard Floyd, always been a fan. Von
always
Miller,
has just long in the tooth, though.
Yeah, Cameron Jordan. I love Cameron Jordan. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love that signing.
Yeah.
So there's options, right? If you don't hit in the edge with, maybe a top two rounds pick, if you don't hit an edge there, and then you get someone in the third or the fourth that's maybe a little more developmental, maybe you do have to go to the well to one of these older guys to say, all right, we kind of need someone to bolster this position. But you do have Harold Landry on a big contract. And so what are you going to do there? I mean, is he going to start the year fully healthy? Is he not? And just our depth at that position is pretty terrible. So
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so if you look at that, right, we kind of know who's out there. There are some serviceable to really good options out there. All the big names are gone. But then once you get into the draft, Mike, there's a fair amount of guys that I like. Oh,
yeah.
You know who abused the lineman? It was Gabe Jackus, dude. Gabe Jackus absolutely dominated Tiernan. Bad.
He's a pretty stout guy too. He can set the edge.
Yeah. So,
but there's some guys like up at the top where, like, for example, you got guys like Keldrick Falk and TJ Parker. Like, those guys are slated to go in the middle of the first. So if those guys slip to the end of the round, you have to take a really close look at it. If you want to go ahead and flip the script, that's what I was talking about. It have to be somebody that really fell,
right?
Falk and Parker, like the number 2 and 3, according to Draft Buzz, they're the number 2 and 3 prospects at edge. So if you saw Ruben Bain's not going to be there, first of all. No. But if you saw one
David
of those
Bailey
guys,
gone, David Bailey, Ruben Bain's gone.
Yeah, so you'd have to take a look at that if those guys fell. So that's another thing that you have to take into account, how the draft board falls. They might have to pivot. So I hope they're ready to do that.
And there's guys here like Mason Thomas, Gabe Jackus, Romello Height. These guys, some of these, like Mason Thomas, I think is mocked anywhere between top of the second to top of the third.
Yep.
I've seen him, or maybe middle to top of the third. And so you have these guys that, depending on where they fall, you could get a real strong value. Romello Height is definitely a later round, but this guy is just nonstop juice on the weak side. Like, this guy will get after the quarterback, and he's relentless, and he's got great pursuit as well. So I like him. Then you get into the second, 13 to 24 here. Derek Moore, probably to me, he looks like a guy who's ready to play right now. Right, this guy's ready to play right now. Can set the edge. He's kind of like an Anthony Jennings plus. Oh, we got ZeeBee coming in.
All right,
The boy
Good time.
ZeeBee. What's up, man? How's it going?
Oh, nothing much. A little out of breath.
there he is. What's up, ZeeBee? How are you, bud?
How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Good. Thanks
We're
for
talking
joining.
Edge.
Better late than never, man. We're just right in. We're right in it. We need you to just jump right in.
I think I can get right into the action. Let's do it.
So we're talking. let me tee you up, ZeeBee. So we're talking about edge, and we're saying we started out the conversation saying what's the most important thing. I think pretty much all of Patriots social media and the Patriots are kind of showing their hand a little bit with first round tackle. That seems to be a leading thing between that receiver edge. We're kind of thinking that's probably the play for them based on the tackle depth. And then, so now we're looking into edge and saying, is edge a little deeper where you could get away with taking a guy in the second or the third versus the first, if you're going to take a tackle? What are your thoughts?
Oh, 100%. I made a similar kind of tweet just today about Romello Height, whether or not I'd count him as a pure edge, but I was referencing an edge alternative at 31, but in reality, it's that kind of deep draft. You know what I mean? It's that kind of deep draft at the position. You've got guys that like down to the fourth round. And when I look at it, I think what can you pick up? Say around 61. What might you have available there? Well, you might have Gabe Akers. Yeah. And I think in other, in other years, you're not going to have Gabe Akers available. And right there, you're looking at Romello Height. And I see Romello Height, I think he's around 75 on my board. But I see him go everywhere from, 61, 60 to 80, 60 to 90 in some cases, somewhere in that range. And, this is a bona fide pass rusher right there. And in most years, that's not going to happen because, as you can see, I mean, I can count down the guys that are going to go ahead of him. You know what I mean? That puts downward pressure based on team need, everything else that you have to factor in. That brings you to that point where maybe Romello Height's around half round undervalued, so to speak.
You're not worried about his weight at all because he's really lanky and he's got kind of an undersized frame.
I mean, those are the things that are keeping. That would be the reason that keeps Romello Height from. I mean, so if we rewind, maybe we'll say 3 months ago when people first started finding Romello Height's name, and he first started circulating in the media. I can't remember his exact curve, but he shot up. We had people saying Romello Height going 15th overall, and when you look at his numbers, they're kind of eye popping. And then a few of the things start to pop out. I mean, that to me was insanity. I never even had a first round grade on him. I think I barely have ever had a pure second round grade on him. And I think a lot of people were responding to what his numbers looked like, how ferocious the Red Raider defense sort of looked, right? That would be the thing that keeps that profile that you see just pop on tape away from being a first rounder, because otherwise it's what you're looking at. I think his size, being 200 and weighed in at 242. I don't think that hurts him. I don't think that divides him between 90 and 60. You know what I mean? That just
right.
To me that, and I mentioned that in that tweet, to me that changed. That just, you got to look beyond his numbers, watch all the reps and watch how he's used by TTU, and they really move him around. I think anyone to put a value on him would be putting a value on him as a movable off the ball linebacker, because that's what he was for Texas Tech,
weak side, coming off the weak side, right?
Yeah, he lined up at pure wide 9. I mean, I've got great tape of him rushing straight up, rushing A gap, rushing B gap.
Wow.
Covering in the flats. He's a linebacker.
That's kind of when I watch this game, I'm like, this guy's way too sideline to sideline to just be called an edge. Like, this guy does everything.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'll hear is, and it sticks out. It's a little bit with David Bailey too. Like, they have a type in in Texas Tech, is that no, he is. You said lanky, right? So I think he doesn't look. What's the word? He doesn't look like he bends the way that you think like a natural edge build is a little more pliable. You know, they're a little bit taller, and they look like they have that ability to kind of like physically bend their frame around an arc. And he's a little upright, and that's because, you know, he's a linebacker. You know, at the end of the day, he's a linebacker. Like, and he's built kind of like a linebacker, not really like an edge per se. I wouldn't project Romello height to be like any kind of a defensive end hybrid outside linebacker. He's like
an undersized 3-4 outside linebacker is what he is.
Yeah, either that or a rush 4-3 will, like a rush 4-3 will that you know what I mean, that you move around and you position off off C gap and somewhere off C gap, B gap, and then, you know, maybe a little bit of wide 9. You know,
but his measurables are wild. I mean, he runs a 4.6 440. He's got a 40-inch vertical. He's got a 10 and a half or a 10 feet 5-inch broad jump. I mean, he's a Raz kind of monster outside of his height, right, and weight.
Yeah. I mean, he's one player, and there are a few others that I'd love to see here, but I'm not really sure how they fit. But he's one player I don't have to think too hard about how he fits.
Oh, what do you think about Gabe? What do you think about Gabe Yakis? Because I got fixated today on this, watching this film against Caleb Tiernan, and he seems to abuse him pretty bad.
Yeah,
on the left side of your screen here. Look at that! Look at that rep! Look at that rep! Hold on.
Yeah, he's stout. He's stout.
Yeah, so I've got a video. I've got a video and an article. Both of these guys are going to be featured in it. It's coming out tonight. So it's
nice.
Just about to be dropping on.
We hit on the right subject matter then.
Yeah. It's just five mid-round edges, and it leads off with Gabe Yankas, then Romello height, and then I move my way down, getting to Caden Curry, and
Caden Curry, another one I love too. Yep.
The other guys in the way. So I basically just start and say, you know, imagine that you're sitting at, you know, late second round or early third, and your team didn't get the guy you wanted in the first. Who are you looking at? You know. And I just go progressively down. And I love Akis. He is, above everything else, he's super high energy. And if you watch, and I've watched a lot of his tape.
Relentless. He's relentless.
What?
He's relentless. His tape is him not nonstop action.
And nonstop action. He's a visible, plug-in energy leader for his team. And that's just getting on to like the general Gavicus. Now, what do you have when you see outside of, you know, what's going on there as far as how he fits? He's almost a pure rush. He doesn't do a lot more than rush, so he's really more. He does stand a lot, but he's really more of a defensive end type player. How he would fit in is, I guess I could see him fitting in pretty smoothly into that sort of rusher role that they had last year. Okay. Meaning like he's not your every down edge. He might not be, at least not to start, but he's a guy who can come in and get you rush reps off the edge.
Well, that's what we need, because we have we were just talking about, we have the early down guys to set the edge. We need the late down guys, the third down guys to come in and pin their ears back and rush the passer. But it's really interesting because we were just having a conversation debating, because we've seen mock drafts where like we were debating between offensive tackle and edge player, and that the edge player class is a lot deeper. So we were debating, since there's going to be like 7 OTs taken in the first round, should we go ahead and get one of those guys in the future in the first round, because of what you just said, because those guys will be around in the second round, that second tier of edge rushers. So it's interesting dynamic. Do you think we can still get like a pretty solid, serviceable edge rusher in the second round?
I would say this: once TJ Parker is off my board, okay, I'd say I could maybe make the argument for Howell, right? Once these guys are gone, and really for me, it is more about Parker than Howell, because Howell's just a better version of some of the. I mean, he's literally just a slightly better version of Romello height. He's
with 30-inch arms.
Yeah, no, he really is. He's another kind of undersized, really more like going to end up probably being more like a linebacker of sorts in the NFL. Another older prospect. So he's just a slightly improved version of height. Once you get past TJ Parker, I don't see, there's no one that I would, you know what I mean? There's no one in there.
Thomas, Derek Moore. You don't think those guys are going to make a difference?
I wouldn't take Derek. I don't have Derek Moore valued up at 31.
No. Not at 31, but like, do you think he is worth, moving up for? Do you think he's worth in the second?
But yeah, that's an interesting question. I do have Derek Moore ranked ahead of Romello Height, just based on, visibly Derek Moore's, a little bit more physically.
He's in line. He's in line with the position.
Yeah. I could see Derek Moore taking. Derek Moore has some bad reps in run defense. Okay, but like I could see him taking on an offensive lineman. He has that ability. He has that ability that, and you look at Romello Height, there'll be points where he'll just get washed out. Just he's a linebacker, not really, he's a linebacker, not an edge,
right.
In that pure sense, the way that I would say, like Matthew Judon was an outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme, but a true, 3-4 outside linebacker to me needs to be able to do a little bit two gapping, needs to be able to, he needs to be able to stand up to a tackle full time, Right.
So you think it would be a decent strategy to take a tackle in the first round and an edge guy in the second round, or what are your thoughts about?
I didn't finish. I'm sorry, Mike. I did not finish, but I would take the way my board looks. I'd take any position that you thought you needed more than edge, and it sounds kind of crazy to say at this point blank, but any position I needed more than edge, I would. If my guys aren't falling to me at edge at 30, at 31, I take any position over the next edge.
Oh wow,
that's interesting. That's awesome. I would take. I mean, what's your remainder after that? Let's say Zion Young's there. You like Zion Young at 31?
I don't love it.
I wouldn't hate it personally.
I mean, how many he's not really a great producer. So he went his fourth season, and I think what did he finish up with 6 sacks last year or something? So
yeah, it's not inspiring, right? I think at that point I'd rather take tackle. Just give me one of these guys.
Not to mention his flags. So if you visit his profile on my website, he's right in there with the class, and I've got those things. There's no need to get into every one of them, but he's got off the field flags.
Oh yeah, he does. Yep.
Yeah. Jeez. So he's got off the field flags. He's a late bloomer. I kind of position him. I'm like, he's the, hey, did you, if you traded down 50 and 20 picks and you really wanted maybe like what TJ Parker is, he'd be the kind of same, in that kind of same vein, maybe can do a little bit of standing, and maybe can play down and play is more of a long kind of, a long technician than he is, but I mean, if you're there and, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if TJ Parker fell. I could see them being very interested in him. I wouldn't think they were, were insane for taking Howell. I personally wouldn't take Howell there. I'm not entirely sure how, like I said, if they took Howell, I would say, well, why didn't you just go back and take, one of these other guys that are kind of undersized, but I would take a tackle. Yes. If there's available tackle, if we go through the tackles, and I'm sure we can easily go through them. Tell me who you think they're taking, and who have they top 30'd, who have they top 30'd now at edge. They've top 30'd height, right?
Yep.
They have top 30'd Mason Thomas, right? Okay.
Yep.
That to me, okay, we're just going purely on top 30s, right? And that doesn't mean everything, but that to me says they're thinking about an edge at 61, not at 31.
Likely, right? With those guys, right? Exactly.
Yeah, if you're looking at Call's board, that's almost to a T. I think I've got Mason Thomas at 55, and I think I've got height at like 75 or 72 or something along those lines.
So one position, ZeeBee, we haven't talked about on this show is corner. And it's an interesting one because there are a lot of, I think, pretty high value guys. And I'm not on the corner. Defensive back. What happened? There you go. So tell me about who you like at corner and where do you see us taking one? Because it's not really an immediate need. It's kind of like the Morgan Moses thing where you got Carlton Davis that's getting a little older. I think we got pretty lucky last year with him being with his availability on the field. And this is like Morgan Moses, right? How many games are we going to get out of either of these players if you had to bet, right? Is it 12, 13 games, 14 games? Like where's the sweet spot there where you'd feel comfortable taking a bet? And likewise, I mean, Gonzo, right? Gonzo has concussion history. He's got the hammy. And it's not to say that these are chronic things that are always going to pop up, but when we have to see extended runs of Alex Austin and some of these guys, Charles Woods, I don't feel pretty good. I don't feel great about the defense. Where do you see us taking a corner in this draft, if at all?
I don't have corner. Yeah, like you said, I don't have corner as a really high need for the Patriots. I am one of the people that thinks this is a good corner class. There are a lot of guys. I know a lot of people mention them and think of them as being lower. I actually don't. There's a lot of guys whose tape I like. Brandon Cezi. They got
Hans.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Chris Johnson. I've had Chris Johnson with a first round grade, like fringe first round grade, high second round grade since I moved October. So he's out of San Diego State. He covers like a glove. So there's a number of even D'Angelo Pons is you just mentioned him. I've had him really high since the outset. Really, really good productive corner. Totally kind of guy that if he were a few inches taller, he'd be an easy first rounder. I don't know where they're gonna go. I'll just sit here and play devil's advocate for your scenario. The guys you mentioned mean that they need you. If I were shopping for you and you were the GM, and I was scouting, and I'd say, well, then you need a boundary corner. Then that's really what you're looking at. So then So then what do we have on the board then for pure boundary guys? Because what we have right now are sort of hybrid boundary. You know what I mean? Like fringe boundary kind of players, who may be more of like a field corner or something like that.
Yeah.
So I would say your next stop would be third round, sitting in and around the second. You're kind of where they're picking in the second. You might be in between some of the guys on my board. So David Igbinosun, Will Lee would be guys that I think could be sitting there around your third round pick that project in. They're they're both solid corners, both bigger corners. David Igbinosun's kind of fits that prototype. He has some good tape. He has some real bad tape where he's being grabby. In fact, he's exceptionally grabby in coverage. You see it quite a bit where if he starts to lose a rep, he'll be pulling at people, but he has also some really good reps where he can get right on top of people and press, and that might be what you're looking for,
Okay, I like it. Yeah, it seems like one of the maybe a little less pressing than tackle, right? Because Morgan Moses is older, and we're talking about protecting Drake May. But I do think it's a sneaky need, and with all these mid-round picks that we have, we're going to trade up, right? Some of these 6 rounders we're not picking, and you could package them up and move up into the third, I think, pretty easily. So do you go get a position like this where you really like somebody in a deep class, and you just say, you know what, I know we don't need this right now, but who knows? Carlton Davis goes down in camp. One of these, anything happens to any of these guys, and we're hosed.
There's Joe. I was telling you about that guy that keeps getting mocked to us, Tradan Stukes, in the second round.
Stukes, yeah.
ZeeBee, do you have any information about Tradan Stukes?
Tradan Stukes is right in there in the clutch with Keontae Scott is another guy that I'd put and I'd throw into that might be in the mix right there if you were looking in the second round. That are both I'd say they're both like in that group. They would be the guys that I would think logically that if you were like targeting a corner right there in the second in line, I would probably go that way in order of preference. Is Keontae Scott available first, Traden Stukes second? They both fit more of that boundary prototype that I would assume, you know what I mean, that I would assume that you'd be looking for, like just because most of the guys, the best guys that I've got around there would be D'Angelo Ponce. I don't think they'd be shopping for him.
Yeah, it's a little pricey for this draft. All right, so we've covered
yeah.
the corner position. Mike, who are some guys you've seen at the safety position that you like?
Well, there's a couple of guys. Who was the one guy we were talking about that was supposed to go in the third round?
Zakee Wheatley.
Zakee Wheatley, yeah, that's one of the guys that I saw. I don't really know a heck of a lot of the safeties. I was hoping ZeeBee could tell us some of that stuff.
I would say the first name that I would come to mind, and I've had him before he blew up as well, way before he blew up, is AJ Halsey. I'm a big Tiger fan, as you know. AJ Halsey would be a guy that I could see them, if they really are looking for a guy who plays deep, and he'd be a guy that I could see them bringing in for a visit. He's also a really, really well built safety. He's never really put it together playing down in the box, even though he kind of looks like he might be able to. Then he's played more of like that deep safety role, but when he has, he's played some fantastic games. He's got a really good eye for the ball, knows how to make a play on it, and rarely doesn't let things get behind him. I'd say maybe his only weak point that has jumped out sort of over the last couple of years with Halsey would be he's had moments where he's taken some weird angles to get at ball carriers when he's coming down into fill, especially when he's filling off to the boundary or the field away from the box. But I could see Halsey would be a guy that legit, if you were looking for like a legitimate, player in there at safety at 61, he'd be a good candidate to think of for the role that they'd probably be looking for, presumably, which would be something more like a true free safety.
Right. Yeah,
they visited with the Emmanuel McNeil Warren, but he's not going to be. He's like a first or at the worst second round pick, so I don't think we're going to be able to pick him up.
Yeah, I'm a little lower than him. Yeah, I'm a little bit lower than. Yeah, I've got him maybe like 38, some 40ish. And he's also not a true, like, I don't like. He may be, but I mean, I really have with Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I think he's more of a strong safety, plays close to the box, plays around, kind of a role. So I don't know. Is that the guy that they're looking for? I'm not. I don't really know exactly what they'd be looking for there. If I would think free safety before I thought, a true deep free safety. Then I thought a hybrid, sort of like a strong safety, cover tight ends kind of a guy like Emmanuel McNeil Warren.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of smoke around this Genesis Smith character out of Arizona getting mocked to us in the middle rounds. Does anybody know anything about him? Genesis
Genesis Smith it would be in that next tier. Yeah, I like Genesis Smith a lot as a free safety type.
That's what we need.
Yeah, he's right in that. He's in a good clutch. He's also up there with Bud Clark, who I wouldn't sleep on. I really like Bud Clark out of TCU in that group as well. Of guys that are maybe a little bit undersized, especially Bud Clark, that you think, oh, he's definitely going to be some kind of so he's definitely going to be, when I say like free, which you really mean is weak side safety, okay? Because that is really what you're playing, you strong side and weak side. I think of like a weak side safety. So and yeah, he's the guy that's going to play top to bottom there, maybe cover some people, yeah. Both Genesis Smith and Bud Clark hit that profile for me, especially when you I consider both of them similar rangy kinds of players as well, as guys that can cover a lot of space.
Oh, good. Solid. We need a guy. We need a backup. We need an understudy for somebody to Kevin Byard to bring into the fold here. Teach him how to play on the back end. So that would be a good
point about him, by the way, is these are positions you put another name out there, but you've now gone with three between Morgan Moses, Kevin Byard, and Carlton Davis. You'd be looking at players who to fill in your back ranks. So for older players, so what you really are looking at there are third round type guys, and all those positions. I wouldn't be thinking you necessarily need to go and grab the best one that you can get in the first round because you have time to develop them, presumably.
And that's how I felt about the first round tackles. And then the more I looked at the depth of that and how many were going to get taken in the first round, it just led me to say, well, if they don't do it here, then when are you going to do it? Do you just wait till the 5th and the 6th and just grab
tackle's a tough spot. Yeah. And then there's a major reason for that. It's about in a given year, about 2/3 to 3/4 of your tackles that are starting in the NFL are taken before the end of the first round or second round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Supply and demand. It's just supply and demand.
It's also just the literal aspect of tackles is you're getting into let's do some biometrics here, but I mean, really, you're getting into a thing where it's so defined by a certain kind of measurables, that it becomes, it's not hard to spot who can play tackle at a reasonable level, and the NFL is really good at sorting that particular, that particular group of players.
Yeah, there's only so many of them out there. Mike Vrabel calls them planet people because there's only so many of them on the planet.
Yeah. So how many?
A lot of people just don't grow to be that size with that type of agility.
Well, there's 32 teams, and so basically you need 64 of them minimum, right? So just think about it. You have 2 starters on each team, so. And then you need backups, you need swing tackles, right? So
you need the NFL really needs about 130 something good tackles. But they don't. But in a given year, they probably have about 56. That's the story of the NFL. And I think we were saying it's you think about the intense winnow process that happens to get you sorting out, and that's a big reason why I'm not a big measurables guy myself. I don't pay too much attention to I don't obsess over players' measurements. A lot of them come out in the wash. Most of them don't make the difference. One group I always paid close attention to are offensive linemen, because it does tell you a thing, and that's part of the winnowing process. Is this guy just big and heavy, or is he big and athletic?
Right.
And that to me always makes a difference. And sometimes it can be a bad reason to take a player, but you've gone through a heavy winnow. The guys that are available in my last mock draft up on Cut Call, I had them take Markel Bell at 9 at their night was it 90, 94, 90, 92, 91, where they're sitting there.
In that area.
Yeah. And we were putting together a mock for a team, and when I'm there, it's for me, I'm looking at like Demetrius Crownover. And I'm on my board, and I'm looking at Markel Bell, and Demetrius Crownover is a bit of an older guy, and he has some really, really bad tape. Like, as in, like, he's just ritually abused by Akeem Mesidor. Like, okay, and like to the point where it's really ugly tape where you sit there and you're like, oh, can he put this together in the NFL? Like, how he's a year 4 player. I want to say off the top of my head, he's a year 4 player. And I think, maybe around that range. I've got Brian Parker too. He's kind of in that clutch as well. Would I feel comfortable putting Markel Bell or Brian Parker too at right tackle to start next year? Probably not.
Right.
It would be fun to get. I like both of those prospects. It'd be fun to get Markel Bell just because
he's a mountain.
I love it. Yeah, it's always fun to get that guy. It was see if you can make him a tackle. And I think with Bell, his tape is fantastic for what it is for this year, especially down the stretch. So he's got Markel Bell has last year not really great tape. I think he gave up 3 or 4 sacks. And then this year he really put it together down the stretch, especially in the playoffs. He was very impressive. So he'd be interesting.
He's like the size of Marcus Bryant, but he's actually good.
Yes, yeah, he's 100%. Yep. Like I would sit there and say Marcus Bryant's tape was kind of a mess, and he was a 3rd or 4th year player. Like I said with Bell, you have that short stint, but you have to. I think a lot of people realize Bell is actually he only played 2 years for Miami, so
and improved a lot in those 2 years. All right, so let's we're a little bit out of time here. I have some people coming over the house, but I do want to touch on linebacker because it's probably I don't know where this falls in the list of things, but if you think about Christian Ellis and Spillane, and that's kind of really our only linebackers at this point, we have to go at least one. I hope we draft 2 linebackers because there's a ton of them late that I really like. But then if you look at where we're drafting, and you think about, guys like, Josiah Trotter come to mind, guys that come over that are around in our second round range. Jake Galde might be a little rich for our second round pick at what is it, 61, 60, whatever.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. He's
going to go probably what, middle of the second, if not
45. Yeah, 40.
Jacob Rodriguez too.
Yeah,
Jacob Rodriguez would be number 1 guy that I would probably think like is in that area that I'd say, oh, you could be. Why? Because I think I could put Jacob Rodriguez in a few different places. Play him. You can play Jacob Rodriguez a few different ways. He'd be, and I love him. I've been posting about him for a while. He's a really fantastic tape.
Him and Kyle Lewis, right? Both Kyle Lewis is another guy. He's a little later, I think, but
love Kyle Lewis. Lewis's Senior Bowl was very, very strong. And he's just Kyle Lewis to me does something that even Rodriguez doesn't do. He does something that Golde doesn't do. Is that Kyle Lewis is a really good cover, like pure cover backer too. So he's a different kind of guy than you really have on the roster right now. So,
but Joe, we got our late round flyer, our favorite guy in the later rounds, Red Murdoch out of Buffalo, right?
Oh boy, dude.
Red Murdoch.
Talk about coverage. This guy, Red Murdoch, you watch his tape. I'm sure you have, ZeeBee. This guy flies around the field. I've never seen a linebacker at his size fly around the field like he does. He's a heat-seeking missile. Like the guy's insane.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how he goes, where he gets picked, because he also takes some weird angles if you go through all the reps. Yeah, he takes some weird angles, and he's sort of like a vertical presence. But yeah, he's definitely high energy, and like you said, I could see them taking a couple of linebackers. I think we even mentioned that the last time I was on, because of where you're at in terms of depth, and then if we went through, and when you're talking about the other positions we talked about. Was it edge? We covered edge. We covered safety. We covered. You make the argument that you need a safety to improve your safety room. Like you could possibly make that argument. Linebacker is a place where you look and you're like, oh, we could actually do a little bit better, maybe
right now.
Yeah,
yeah, right now.
Yeah, right now. Yeah, you could do. You could actually.
A safety's not going to beat out Bayard or Woodson, most likely, right? Those guys are pretty locked in. But your linebacker is Spillane was phenomenal last year. He started out slow, but was phenomenal when he played.
Spillane's a lock.
31.
Yeah, he's 31, but he's playing he's a durable dude playing a position where I'd worry more about with linebackers attrition. He hasn't played a true 31-year-old's number of reps, because he was a special teamer for a number of years. And so he's not dinged up, hurt. He doesn't have a knee, like some kind of a bulky knee from playing so many reps. So I'd be surprised if Spillane is, going to retire or anything. Where you are, what you have after Spillane is where it's kind of like,
yeah, it gets sketchy.
I've said that to you guys before. Are these guys starters on any team? Are these guys?
The answer is no.
Probably not. Probably not on every team in the NFL. And that's why I would say if you're in there, when you mentioned Kyle Lewis, I'm a big fan of his. I was like, well, that my brain initially just starts thinking of if Spillane is miking, which he does, all right. Then my brain goes, well, what are you filling in with? Who are your other linebackers and what are they doing? What roles do we have defined here? And that's why you mentioned Kyle Lewis, and I go, oh, well, that's something you don't have.
Exactly.
I said the same thing with Romello Height. That's something I look at him as a linebacker, really not as an edge. That's something you don't have. Is a guy like that. I mentioned before David Bailey as a possible guy. I don't know how he would go as a full-time linebacker for the defense that they're playing right now. Okay. You never really know, but he can come in and also play some will linebacker, sort of will to nickel, kind of a presence. He gives you something you certainly don't have.
I mean, you look at it and go, if you take one of these guys with that second pick or move up to take a Galladay or, Trotter or one of these guys could have a Craig Woodson type year where they just play every freaking snap. Like these guys could just literally come in and, like you said, be better than Christian Ellis and just play a million snaps. And, it wouldn't surprise me because there needs to be more competition at that level.
If I'm taking Galladay, I'm taking Galladay.
He's an absolute phenom. He is a phenom.
Yeah, he is. And the thing is, you're moving up to take Galladay. You're doing that to put Spillane out of work because there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of overlap in how you're going to be using those guys. Not that you can't use Galladay other ways, but that's really where I would think he profiles and fits. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a different scenario in how where people fit. He would be we really want this guy. This is our guy, and we're going to get him because he's the guy we want for the future. There's a little bit of that to Rodriguez as well. But yeah, it is a good. I'd say it's a decent spot to be in because linebacker, thankfully, is a spot you can fill usually most years, and you'll have guys. One guy who might I think a lot of people maybe got too high on him, but Anthony Smith out of Texas would be another guy that I would immediately think, oh, this is another guy that you might be able to use and do different things for you.
Hold on.
Harold Perkins. Yep.
Got an Harold Perkins. This is another guy that flies around.
I got an episode of Cut Up for him. I'm probably publishing like 10 episodes of Cut Up rapidly with the next few weeks, but he'll be one of them. And I've got tape. I'm a huge Harold Perkins fan, and how he fits in the NFL. I think I love that he's bounced back because at one point, I'm not lying. I looked on someone's website. They had him at 200. They had him at 200. And this is a 5-star.
200 pounds?
200 ranked.
Ranked 200. Get out of here.
200. I know.
He just ran a 4.3840. He ran a 4.3840.
He's a 5-star athlete from LSU and whose production, outside of his ACL year, goes something along the lines of, we're talking 4 to 7, 8 sacks and 12 tackles for losses and multiple, forced fumbles and interceptions. He does it all.
He's a game wrecker. He's a game wrecker. He's a complete game wrecker.
They ask him to cover it in space too. You can do it all. He's so much better at man coverage than pretty much any linebacker that you're going to take there. It's except for, like I said, he kind of profiles in between. If you wanted someone who does a little bit of what Height does and a little bit, he's definitely not going to be able to take on a tackle the way Height can. Okay. But he provides you a rush, a real rush presence. Now, if you go in, you want a little bit of what Height does, a little bit of what Kyle Lewis does, that's your guy because he can get in there and make some hits. He's just such a plus defender on so many athletic levels. And he'd be a guy that I would love to see any team bring in. If I were a fan, I'd be like, this is a guy that you want to see play. There's some tape going on right here that I've seen. Someone else got a little marquee right here. You do see some of his tendencies to run around tackles, which is how you know that really he's definitely a deep off the ball linebacker. Harold Perkins is not a guy who's going to be good at or want to engage with offensive linemen. So that's why I wonder about slip and slide his way through all those blocks.
Yes, he does. Yeah. He had, and it's the thing about his tape too is that he also he's worse at taking on offensive linemen than his frame kind of suggests. Because he's not very patient about it. You have some awkward reps when there's an offensive lineman who's getting at the second level where you see him kind of try and tack around them. You know what I mean? And it's kind of he's not, and nor is he ever going to be a gap, fill in the gap, stack and shed linebacker. He's nothing close to that. What role there is there for the Patriots would be a little bit, he's a little bit less sure for me. And I think that kind of goes with a guy like David Bailey, where you go, I'm sorry, not David Bailey, Harold Perkins, where you say where he goes and where he lands depends on who needs a player to play the role that he's going to play, and if they're picking and where they're picking, and if they've got the need met, because he might end up having this really wide distribution. I could see it. I wouldn't be surprised if he went like very, like right after the second in there in the 60s. I wouldn't be surprised if he went in the 90, like up towards 90.
Yeah, he's got a wide prism, right? A wide prism of outcomes.
I look at it and I say, how many teams have that role? Number one, and then two, how many teams need the role? You know what I mean? They need the role bad enough to spend it. That's not a value estimation. It doesn't tell you really more about Harold Perkins than it tells you about the market.
Right.
Right.
I think about that position though, and I say, what if we drafted Kyle Lewis and this guy, right? What if you drafted Galladay and this guy? Would we just have two immediate starters? Like, would you immediately just start both of these guys with Galladay and Perkins? Like, is Perkins just better than Christian Ellis?
I think Perkins were. If I see Perkins in New England, I'm thinking right off the bat that he's going to be. I wouldn't consider him a starter. Like, he would be a starter sub. You know what I mean? Like
sub package player.
So you're in this weird situation where, like, yeah, I think you'd be able to get reps immediately, but like not what you normally consider starting reps. And then, if you were going to move up, I think you'd have to move up, at least on the way that I think how things are going to shake out. If you're going to get Galladay, you're either trading down or you're trading up, like, to get Galladay. Yeah. So I would be disappointed if you were trading down or up and packaging something to get Galladay. I think you could do better things if I were with the picks. But if you did, I would be very disappointed if he weren't starting, which I don't know what that means for Christian Ellis and Spillane, but I'd be very disappointed because that's whoever you get with your first round pick. You're really kind of hoping that they're, which is really what you're getting there. But if you take a bunch of stuff and you package yourself up to like 40 or wherever you think it's going to be safe, 45, whatever, to get Jake Galladay. 50, I'd say, would be like the lowest that I would think. You're giving up in a first round value worth of picks to get them, right? So you're stopping and saying what you really have to say is we now look at Galladay as a first round talent. We project him to be an immediate starter.
Right. All right, so guys, we're kind of at time here, but we're gonna wrap it up with something quick. Mike, give me 3 guys in this draft that you don't want to leave without.
Oh boy, that's a very tough one.
Can be any rounds, can be anywhere. Just 3 guys that are your guys.
Who are the guys that I absolutely love? Well, honestly, one of the guys I love based on the recent activity is Max Ionakor. I think he is incredibly athletic and gifted, and I think he could start at right tackle right away. But the fact that he's going to get a year of understudy, I'm pretty happy with that. Another guy you obviously know, I'm going to say this, is Adam Randall, the running back from Clemson. I just think he's got all kinds of potential, converted receiver. And he could run between the tackles very well this past year. High character guy. Was a permanent team captain. I think he could come in and be like.
Look at that bow tie too, Mike. Let's look.
What's that?
Look at the bow tie on this guy.
Yeah, he's a high class guy. He's a high character individual. I really like him. And the other guy I like, I'm going to go back to it, is Red Murdoch, because when I looked at his tape, the guy hits like an absolute Mack freaking truck. Now he gets caught out of position sometimes. I know he's not a higher end. He's more of a depth option or anything like that. But the guy forced 17 fumbles in the past 3 seasons. So you don't just do that like out of the blue. Like, he obviously, his physicality has had a tangible impact. So he's somebody I'd like to take. Him and Randall, I like late flyers on. And Ionakor, I would like in the first round, to be quite honest with you. So those are 3 guys I'd like to see become Patriots.
Okay. ZeeBee, who are your 3 guys? Who do you want to see in a Patriots jersey?
I could go I go with a lot of guys. Let's say dream scenarios for me. If I'm a Patriots fan, my dream scenario is if I have Caleb Lamu or if I've got Denzel Boston sitting in my lap in the first round, I tickle pink. They'd be two guys that I think, oh, well, there you go. They fit a need. They fit a need very well. And you can visibly see, oh, this is how you can use this person to immediately improve what you're doing. So those would be, two guys that I would jump right out and say, all right, well, these are my guys. Back end, start creeping down the board a little bit. I'm a huge Oscar Delp fan, as you know. I was really thrilled that they brought him in. Would love to see what you could do with Oscar Delp in a better sort of offense than what he's been in the last few years. And in an offense with Josh McDaniels in particular. And I see ways they could get him involved really quickly and really easily, running this kind of routes that Hooper was running for you last year. Down the draft a bit, looking for a role that you don't have really filled out. Eli Heidenreich out of Navy would be guy.
The fullback.
Yeah, he is no. He
does it all. He does it all.
Right. So a fullback, Navy plays academy football. So fullback at Navy really means something more like something between a
wing back. It's like a single wing offense, isn't it?
Yeah, he's not a wing back. Is more close to what we would think of as a tight end. A fullback in their offense is really more something between a wide receiver and a running back. If we're going to make that like super explicit, they move.
He's very
around.
gadgety for sure. I've watched his film. He's gadgety as hell.
Yes, but he does profile so that he could fit in to like something like a slot or third down back kind of a situation where you move him around and you do some things with him. But mostly that would be a developmental guy that I could see them pulling that I would love to see them do to bring in as a guy. To be a really guy that I'd say they can do without, but I mean, he'd be a guy that I'd love to see there. Most of the guys that I'd say, I gave you my names of the two guys. If I were going to say really like, I would love to see them in the offense. It would be another first rounder, and that's just boring because then I would just say Eli Stowers.
I knew you were going to say Stowers. I knew it.
Yeah, be the other. Well, I personally would love to see what Josh McDaniels did with Eli Stowers, who is a rare and unique talent, and I would really like to see what Drake May would do with Eli Stowers, just playing out there, playing off the slot. So those would be three guys that if somehow they got onto the roster, in that first top area or whatever, they would be my three guys where I'd be like, I'm happy. I got a good guy.
People would hate it, and I really do. I don't hate the Eli Stowers Oscar Delp double dip because you're drafting, like you said, a slot and an inline tight end, and you're just set. Like you're just basically set now with your offense. And if you did AJ Brown, you could still do that. It would really crowd that receiver room at that point. But to me, I would punt Hunter Henry to the curb if I had those two guys. I really would.
Yeah, people's brains would be melting down.
Because
neither of Delp, I would say neither of Delp neither of them are really your trad Y, perfect like inline Y kind of a guy.
Right, they can't block. Those guys can't block.
Delp can block very well.
Delp can block for sure.
I guess PFF didn't like it, but that doesn't mean th're right.
There's a reason why they just fired all those hacks.
No. I mean, I'm gonna just say this, like Oscar Delp didn't just hang around on Georgia's offense for 3 years to not catch passes. He has really good blocking tape. I can spill 30, 40 reps right off my Premiere Pro backdrop over there. He's a really good blocker. Does he have some stuff to work on? Yeah. You probably see there's stuff he can work on, but what I saw this year was really good. In particular, I wouldn't worry about him blocking at all. He's just not he's just not like a big mauler type blocker. He's really more of a movement type blocker, like more what you got with kind of Hooper last year, and kind of more of what you got with Henry. Kind of somewhere in between there. So he's not a guy that's going to, I would just say that because people kept saying he's a blocking tight end. And it's like, well, not that kind of blocking tight end. He's not. He's not Eli Raritan. He's not like that.
No, he's not in line. He's a move. He's a move blocking tight end. He's a motion crack back.
Just it's fact. These are facts. And by the way, the thing that you just mentioned, Mike Vrabel 100% mentioned is the thing that they need to do. There's a reason you're seeing a lot of these guys because that's how they play football in college. That's what people want. Like that having a big immovable Y guy in there isn't really a fixed position on rosters the way it was before. And people are really trying to get the ball moving left, get the ball moving right, use misdirection because it's really, really difficult to win in the margins by just lining up and saying, we're just going to run at you. Most of the teams, by the way, that are the very successful run offenses in the NFL do not, in fact, do that. They take marginal movement type blockers. San Francisco runs the ball on everyone. They do not have a wide tight end. They've got a fullback who is really just a good blocker, not a great blocker. And they've got a tight end who's just a good blocker, but not really a great blocker.
Tongas.
Yep. Yes. And not a pure Y. And they run over everyone. Because everyone in
McCaffrey.
Yep. Everyone in their offense is a good movement blocker. So we're just about out of time, guys. My guys that I'm not leaving the draft without. If I get one of these guys, I'll be happy, honestly, out of these three. And between Omar Cooper Jr. and Chris Bell, who are very different players, but I think those guys bring juice to this offense that we don't have. Those are my receivers that are like my guys for sure. Then it's gonna be an interesting one, but I do like Eli Raritan. I like his value at where you pick him because I do think he was an underutilized tight end from a receiving standpoint, but he's a complete house from a build standpoint. So this guy can do it all. Dare I say he's not, he's the Gronk type, but I'm never going to say he's Gronk, but he's got that ability to both block and receive. Right. And so there's not a ton of those guys that can do that in this draft. There's people that can catch, there's people that can block, but to say people that can do both and have proven that, I like Raritan as a receiver better than I like Roush.
Yeah.
That's flat out, straight out every day. There's a lot of Roush hype, and I don't dislike Roush, but I would say if we're talking about tight ends, one guy that's not a blocker is Justin Jolie. Would be another guy that I would throw in there. And
yes,
love to see Jolie. I would love to see Jolie cook in this offense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So those are my two guys from an offense perspective, and then the decent defensive side of the ball. This ain't gonna happen, but I'm saying Golday. I've watched his film enough where I'm just like, this guy is like going to be an all-pro linebacker. It just there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He just has everything you need. So if we get one of those three guys, I'd be ecstatic.
I think one guy we got through the episode and didn't mention, which I think we should have. I feel negligent. Is Akeem Mesidor.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just before we get out of here, because I'm a Mesidor fan, and I'm just generally they've met with Mesidor, but they took a third, and they take a 30 with him or something. I forget exactly the timeline.
They did.
Yeah. Okay. And Akeem Mesidor would be after like that sort of TJ Parker was probably not going to be there for them. He would be that full service, full time, can stand up, can play the outside linebacker, play defensive end. If they took, I'm a little bit lower than 31 on him, but if they took him there, he would be the guy after that group that I'd slide in there and say, okay, I see why, because he'd be a plug. To me, he'd be a guy that you think, oh, I can see him come in next year and immediately give you plus reps. So
I like it. All right, guys. Well, it's been a great episode. We ran a little late, as always. ZeeBee, we never run anywhere near on time with you because we always chop it up and time just flies. But thank you, guys. Thank you, ZeeBee, for coming on. I know it was kind of early for you, probably rushing from somewhere else, but definitely appreciate it. And this is our first episode of season 2. We're really excited. ZeeBee is going to be joining us in person at the draft at Rogue Island. So we're going to have a panel of podcasters, content creators, fans, you name it. We're going to be giving out stuff. ZeeBee, I'm going to see if I can get you something from Fanatics because I think they're shipping us stuff, but we'll get you something.
Excellent.
But yeah. So thanks everyone for joining in, and as always, let's fucking go.
Go.